early to mid 1990s, the SNES competed directly with the Sega Genesis in Asia, Europe, and North America. Both systems had their merits and were marketed to slightly different audiences. Some of this marketing campaign included devoting resources to specific types of games, which would allow one platform to dominate genre-based markets. In this way, Sega succeeded greatly by focusing on sports games and totally outmatched the SNES in that space. However, one area where Sega got completely stomped by Nintendo was in the adventure and role-playing game department. Nintendo had the support of Squaresoft and Enix, both of which churned out amazing titles that fit into that category. In addition, Nintendo also released the unparalleled Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, which many believe was the greatest action-adventure game ever released at that point. Sega, on the other hand, had the support of fewer developers willing to produce RPG and adventure games, and struggled to compete. Toward the end of the lifespan of the Genesis, though, the company made an honest attempt to take on Nintendo's RPG dominance, realizing that the genre attracted a group of players that they hadn't been successful at reaching. One of the ways they did this was through Crusader of Centy, which was released in Japan as Shin Suseikei Ragnacenti. It was produced by Nextech, which released the game in North America in 1995. Story-wise, you won't be surprised by many of the game's themes. The protagonist is Corona, a 14-year-old boy that inherits the sword of his father, a legendary knight who lost his life in battle. Unexpectedly, Corona loses the ability to communicate with humans during the course of his adventure, but gains the power to converse with animals. On the surface, Crusader of Centy looks, feels, and plays like a Zelda game. From its overworld view, to its unmistakable action-oriented combat, to its lengthy and unique dungeons, even to its unit-based life meter, it's almost scandalous how much this title emulated that series. Even slashing bushes works the same way as it does in A Link to the Past. I guess one could disparage the game on this basis, but as far as I'm concerned, the more games like A Link to the Past, the better. The part of Crusader of Centy that sets it apart from A Link to the Past, though, is the overworld map. A Link to the Past utilizes a complete interconnected world of conjoined screens, where travel from one side of the world to another is a lengthy endeavor. In Crusader of Centy, however, there's an overworld map with preset locations that you travel to and from. There is some backtracking, so it's a bit more linear than a game like Zelda. In fact, the overworld map reminds me a lot of Super Mario World and how that experience feels. If I had to criticize any one aspect of the game, it would probably be this, because I think the huge interconnected world of screens to travel through just works better. Another facet of Crusader of Centy that differentiates it from other adventure games like Zelda is that you can actually jump in this one. This opens up some basic platforming that must be done to gain access to certain platforms, and forces the player to use the ability to circumvent obstacles like lava. This mechanic wasn't too overbearing and was kind of refreshing. I thought it worked well. The most standout feature of Crusader of Centy is the animal system. Throughout the course of the game, Corona can find and befriend up to 16 animals. Each of them, when equipped, gives the protagonist a specific power that helps you in your quest. For instance, having Chili the penguin by your side allows you to charge your sword with a powered ice attack when it's thrown. On the other hand, Dippy allows you to traverse over water on the overworld map, and also cross over various damaging terrain unscathed. But there's even a layer beyond this. Rather than merely having an animal to take the place of a special item, the game allows you to equip two animals at one time. This allows their powers to blend together to grant Corona completely unique abilities that only that combination provides. Another facet of the game that really sets it apart from others is the unique, well-designed bosses. They have awesome graphical animations, attack patterns, and sizable differences that make them memorable. The swirling arm octopus especially is one of the bosses I remember vividly. Another awesome encounter is this water snake hydra thing that shoots out fireballs that you deflect back toward it. And then there's this Dragon Knight guy you face with an animated background. Just wow, this really seemed to push the system to its visual limits. I can't say enough about just how different each boss was, and how fun they were to overcome. Most of the Crusader of Centy's soundtrack is upbeat, and the tunes do an adequate job of sticking in your head. It's a pretty good variety of 25 tunes, a lot of which use simulated wind instruments and synthesized sounds. Like most Genesis games, It utilizes the prototypical grindy noises that the Genesis was known for, and this really made it stand out from the RPG soundtracks for games on the SNES. As an RPG fanatic, I consider Crusader of Centy a game the Genesis so desperately needed at the time. If the system would have featured more games of a similar ilk, it certainly would have caught much more of my attention back then. The concept, gameplay, exploration, and dungeons were great, and it truly is a marvel that stands out from everything else on the system. There are some out there that portray the title as an absolute ripoff of A Link to the Past, and in some ways it really was, but honestly, the storyline and animal system really made it a game in its own right, even if it borrowed some infectious elements of the Zelda franchise. It's enough of its own thing either way for me to forgive it entirely for all the great concepts it took from Zelda. Unfortunately, by the time Crusader of Centy reached market, it was too late for Sega. Both fans and game developers had already begun flocking to next-generation consoles, and Sega's attempt to capitalize on adventure RPGs was largely left in the dust. Left by the wayside, the game didn't have the impact Sega hoped, but it still made a great impression on me. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's one of my absolute favorite games on the system, and that's quite a distinction. If I had to recommend someone play just 5 titles on the Genesis, this would definitely be listed among them. It's just too bad it wasn't included on the Sega Genesis mini console, and the cartridge is extremely expensive today. Nevertheless, if you can get your hands on it, it's absolutely worth playing now. If you like this review and remember Crusader of Centy, leave a comment below about the most memorable aspect of the game to you. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell below to be alerted upon the addition of new ones. Also, please consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.